hi again.
Hi there.
My name is Mitko.
I'm Michael.
And we are the Lens UK. Now, welcome to our the newest edition of Okay.
Through the lens. Take it easy, Mitko. Let's go.
I know, yeah, sorry. Welcome to our latest edition to Through the Lens. Now, last week we talked about zoning, which I think was a really interesting topic to talk about. But this week we would like to talk about Android and issues with fragmentation.
Exactly. Our new articles you saw this week on our page, they were really academical. So was our first talk, and I think today is a lot more about experiences and our personal opinions, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, we would like to give you a better insight actually when how me and Michael discuss about the technological stuff and technological issues when we, for example, wait for the bus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kick it off. So, Mitko, you mentioned the topic is Android fragmentation.
Yeah, so the topic we would like to talk about today is the Android fragmentation. I read in the news, on The Verge actually, that it's been 8 months since the introduction of ice cream sandwich, and it is only present at 10% of the phones at the moment, which I think is a ridiculously small number compared to the number of Androids activated last year. What do you think about that?
I totally agree, and it's exactly what I always argue is the main problem for Android, and also my main problem with the Android. Because I was using an iPhone, then went to use an Android phone, then went to use a Windows phone, went back to using an iPhone. And having experienced all this, one thing that always struck me as like being unbearable with Android is like, no matter which phone I take, it feels entirely different than the other one, and all seem to be behind by at least 1 or 2 generations from the new software. And I know exactly the day when you finally got ice cream sandwich on your phone and you came in and Michael, I got ice cream sandwich and it's amazing, and I was like, okay, let me see, and it actually was really good software. But having said this, it's, what did he say, 8 months?
Yeah,
since it came out and 10% are using it. I think this is like ridiculous, and it's a huge problem for Android looking ahead.
Well, let me just introduce this one small thing. I use a Samsung Galaxy S2, which at the time when when Ice Cream Sandwich came out, it was the second best phone after Galaxy Nexus. And still, for the second best phone on the market for Android, it took 2 months to get Ice Cream Sandwich, which already was a ridiculous thing. Now, what do you think is the issue behind everything? Why is it so fragmented? How come it's still only on 10% of the devices?
I think its main problem might be that Google is really fast at iterating new software, which is a good thing in itself. But since Google took an open source approach, they're working very loosely with different OEMs, and these OEMs take this opportunity to bring out custom skins, custom-made phones in a way. And me, for myself, I used like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different Android phones, which is not much considering that there are like 100 or something out there. But every single one felt differently, and there wasn't one until I finally had like an ice cream sandwich that convinced me. And even now, most of my friends are still like behind ice cream sandwich. I think you're the only one that I actually know who's using ice cream sandwich right now. And this is a bummer, because for app developers, who are the ones that actually make for an ecosystem, why would they produce for Android when they can produce for iOS, where they have, with one app, the certainty that they will reach the biggest audience possible? Whereas for Android, if they develop to the newest firmware or like operating system they have, to get the best features out of it and the best experience, and then only have like 10% of the potential market, I myself wouldn't make that decision to do that. And there's no other alternative, because having different versions in the store would not be consumer friendly, and making one version that is compatible with everything is just impossible, because the quality of the app would suffer. So that is a huge issue, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Google's model claims that Android is open source, and being open source, it offers it at free cost to all the OEM companies, so the OEM companies can differentiate between themselves. But regarding the apps, now the app developers, do you think that the fact that the App Store has been there for longer. It had the pioneer advantage over the Android store. Then, do you think that might be a contributing factor?
I think I'm very opinionated in this opinion because I see a first mover advantage as not as big as an advantage as some others might do. Because theoretically speaking, you can say like obviously they're the first, they have the biggest recognition and everything. But to be honest, consumers don't care who was first. In many cases, especially technology is a good example because they care for it for the feature, for what something does, and they don't care who was first. They want it in their environment, and so in technology it's quite easy to copy something, as we learned recently, and all the legal issues of Apple, Samsung, Google, and so on, they just underline this issue, and I don't agree that being first is the reason why Apple is successful. I see the fragmentation, this non-consumer friendliness of Android through this fragmentation as the main issue.
But to get back on the main issue of the fragmentation, so what do you think Google should do in order to get, say, Jelly Beans and the new Google software on as many phones as possible?
Google, in my opinion, has to rethink their approach. We've seen them just like a few days ago at the I/O, they bring out their own tablet. They're still working with an OEM, in this case Asus, to produce the hardware, but they're working a lot closer with the OEMs. So it might, for Android at the moment, because they have a huge variety of phones, which is one of the big selling points, but if they don't have a certain amount of quality within this lineup, it's confusing to consumers, and it's going to be a real issue. So in my opinion, they have to work with maybe less OEMs and enforce a more rigorous update cycle. And I also could see them maybe literally like having a more Microsoft-like approach to the way they deal with their OEMs.
Well, I for once agree with you, and I would like to point out that I think Google starts to realize it themselves, because they really tried to push out. They really tried to push out the Nexus line. They pushed out the Galaxy Nexus, which was a benchmark phone, benchmark Android phone as well. Now they're pushing out the Nexus tablet, which is again a benchmark phone to which other Android devices can be compared to. Now there's one thing I kind of think, which I would like to hint out as well, is the fact that I think not so many people are aware of the software updates that Android's bringing out. I mean, Android's literally coming out with new software every 7 to 8 months, and not so many people know. I talked to one of my classmates the other day who's got an Android phone, and he asked me what is ice cream sandwich. I don't want to judge him about that, but I think that is actually one of the issues, because when Apple comes out with their products, people immediately know that, you know, iOS 5, iOS 6, iOS say...
But let me interrupt you, because don't you think it's because Google is just too fast for the average consumer to keep up with? I'm not, from a technology perspective, that's amazing. But from a consumer perspective, isn't this something that actually might be a hindrance to their consumer friendliness?
I don't think so, because let's say it's 7 to 8 months. Apple comes out with new software every 1 year, so it's not that much difference. I think there is not enough marketing, not enough effort to make consumers aware about that. You know.
So, but let me be straightforward. We have an open source approach. Open source means we create the base, you enhance it, you do it. It's your responsibility.
Yeah.
In a way. So, don't you think that doing more marketing for Android would like relieve OEMs from their duty? I think it's the duty of OEMs to properly market their products.
I think that's a good point to raise.
A good point to raise. So
yeah, I know. Now I'm actually thinking what else to say about that. I mean, obviously they need to. Still, it doesn't change the fact that people don't know what ice cream sandwich is, or what Jelly Beans, the new one, came out with. I mean, it came out with a week ago, but there just simply wasn't enough buzz about it. So I think by pushing out the new benchmark devices like they have the Galaxy Nexus, the Asus Nexus tablet, they can increased awareness about, at least about the, the basic software that Google is offering, regardless of the customization that the OEM producers are putting on top.
But isn't that like a really, really dangerous step? I mean, like we're academics, right? We're business students, and just think about it. Google positions itself as the friendly company offering this thing for free. You do what you want and we don't care about it. And now suddenly they realize, hey, we might have been wrong with this. And let's shift back. We bring our phones. We bought Motorola utility, Motorola mobility. Nobody knows what they're actually going to plan with it, but obviously they're going to bring out their own hardware at one point. I mean, like, it's just too evident. And doesn't that mean acknowledging defeat to Apple, who takes an entirely different approach? Doesn't that mean like they're in the end trying to copy Apple again? Well, do you think they can have this diverse lineup of having these Google phones and these OEM phones with Google software?
But wouldn't that be cannibalizing themselves? Wouldn't introduce their own phone and then introduce another Android phone, be fighting? Wouldn't they be competing against each other?
That's exactly my point, Menko. And I think this is the situation we have at the moment. So everybody embraced Android at the moment, but in my opinion, Android isn't the most appealing software for them anymore, because the steps Google are taking are going away from this openness, freedomness. And they're still like open, but they keep their newest iteration of software like to a very, very limited amount of devices. And with steps as Motorola utility and bring out the Google Nexus lineup, they started shifting their way, and they opened up a new path for them, and it's really, really difficult.
So let's talk about that one though. Do you think it's a good step they're doing, or do you think it's not?
This ties obviously into the question whether open or closed innovation is a bad thing, and I can see what the value is for Apple, and they have really, really consumer-friendly environment and product, which is like, there's nothing comparable out there to what Apple is offering at the moment. On the other side, you have something of Android, which is really open, really ideally open to developers, open to customers to have their own skinning, and there are people out there liking it, but it's by far... Let's put it differently, because I think actually a lot of consumers don't even bother about the problem of having not the latest software. But from an industry-wide perspective, I think it's a huge issue, because it kind of like slows down innovation. Whereas Apple brings out innovation and everybody will be able to use it, or like the biggest push will.
So I think it all comes down to the trade-off. I mean, Google at the moment is one of the most widely available softwares, but it really comes to the trade-off. Do they want to be on as many devices as possible, but really inconsistent, to have Froyo on one and to have Ice Cream Sandwich on the other, which is a huge difference? Or do they want to be on a smaller number of devices, such as Apple, but at much higher quality? And that's really what Google needs to figure out, I think, in my opinion. What do they actually want from their software? If they want to sell it as a most widely available or one of the most quality softwares out there.
Exactly, and I think it also ties into one of the most fundamental issues in strategy and management, because the path they had so far would eventually cause them to become a low price provider in a way, because the software of the growth of their products won't be up to date. They can't compete on the innovation level with Apple and maybe even Microsoft, who are taking like a close approach, because what they have done in the last 2 years of like progressing the operating system to like a higher innovative level is amazing. And this faces Google with the decision if they want to be in the mind of consumers as like a more like low cost and low quality operator, or like a really, really highly innovative company. And that's where they have to make the decision. And for us, it's really important to see, because in the end, the decision again comes down to open versus closed innovation. And whether we actually want Apple to succeed with closed innovation is something of an entirely different matter, because this would mean we're going away from open standards. We're going to have more trouble with intellectual property, and this is really, really like, these are really, really grave issues that have to be discussed, and I think we're going to have like another talk about open versus closed innovation. But maybe to wrap it up, I think there are a lot of issues on a strategic perspective that go ahead with in hand with the fragmentation of Android that are worth discussing and worth looking at because they have long-term implications. Not at the moment, consumers are not aware of that at the moment, but they will be in, say, 1 year, maybe.
I think it's going to get really interesting in this field because obviously iOS is there as the most popular phone OS at the moment, and I really like the innovations that Windows Phone 8 is bringing in. So I think the competition is going to get even more intense in this sense. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Google do next. How do they establish their path? How do they establish their strategy?
Yeah. Will they be able to make the innovation that is obviously there to be available to everybody? Okay, we'll go. Let's call it a day.
Yeah. Thank you for following us. Thank you for listening to the conversation, and we look forward to have you on our next podcast.
Exactly, and we'll hopefully be done by next Friday again. Uploaded sometime on the weekend, but we're busy and.
Well, as you said before, we asked the students, we're writing our dissertation at the moment.
Exactly.
So,
So
we'll see you soon.
see you soon.